Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Rodriguez versus Nishida fight. And if you're new around here and you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. Like the video if you do need, like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Rodriguez is 22-2 with 13 KOs and Nishida is 8-0 with 1 KO. This fight is for the IBF World Bantamweight title. Rodriguez's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Lopez, and Nishida's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Jimenez. This is in Nishida's home country of Japan. Nishida is a southpaw. Rodriguez is 31 and Nishida is 27. Rodriguez's losses have come versus Caballo in 2020 and Inoue in 2019. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, of course, IBF World Bantamweight title on the line. It's Rodriguez's belt, which he is yet again defending after last time defending it again against Lopez and winning relatively comfortably, and putting on a relatively good show, well, a very good show, and he dropped him, and he looked convincing throughout the whole fight, and so it was a very good showing from him. And now he's fighting Nishida, who was the top contender in the IBF rankings, and so he's deserving of this shot, even though perhaps he hasn't really faced anybody of any real note as of yet. But nonetheless, the fights he has been fighting, he's been out in Japan and in the lower weight classes. A lot of them bigger fights do end up happening out in Japan, like this one. So he's been creating a resume for himself, and he's been winning, and he has got a style in which looks good. It's clean, it's sharp. I'm going to speak a bit more about it in a moment, but he's creating a bit of a name for himself, and now he's bringing his first big fight to Japan. I have full respect for Rodriguez for going to Japan. I believe it's his first time professionally wise fighting out in Japan, but he's fought in a lot of different countries and fought in other people's home countries, and he's still managed to go out in there and get wins in other people's home countries. If I think back to the Paul Butler fight where he went over to England and he came and he won, and he's fought in many different places, and he's managed to win even when being the away fighter quite often. Of course, Nishida being the younger fighter, Rodriguez not really on the old side, but he's on a side in which of course is the older, I suppose, but he has got that much higher level of experience than that of Rodriguez. Obviously, he's suffered the 2 defeats before, but since he's kind of made himself back as a world level type fighter, and he's really bought his best. And even when you look back upon the defeats, especially the Inoue one, obviously it was quite a dramatic finish. It was Inoue on his rise up as well, and just basically just outpacing him and landing very clean and finding an instant early weakness where Rodriguez did just want to, bulldoze through him, and perhaps that wasn't really the right game plan. But, since then that could have affected him a lot more than I think it did. Obviously, he suffered the defeat shortly after against Caballo, but, like I mentioned, since then he's been rebuilt quite well, and possibly he's just been picking the fights a bit better. But even then, when you look at the Russell fight, that was a tough fight to take, and he won very clearly. He dropped him multiple times, and so yeah, he is a world class fighter. And even though he did get stopped early against Inoue, I don't really think that shows too much. It was just perhaps shows Inoue is just perhaps a level above everybody else, which I feel like everybody already kind of knows anyway. Speak about them both as fighters though. Rodriguez, he goes to the body well, in close type fighter. He's physical and he puts on that physical pressure, and he's a fast starter, and so he's always going to be difficult and in your face, and it's definitely something in which Nishida's not going to be used to, so he's going to have to learn how to deal with that, in my opinion. I think Rodriguez's kind of will to be in your face probably will outwill Nishida's maybe want to keep it at more of a distance. He puts his combinations together very nicely, and he's very much in your face. He's a fast starter, like I mentioned, and controls the centre of the ring relatively well. Even against Inoue, he controlled the centre relatively well, and it seems like every single one of his fights, he is just the one that's going to be in the centre, and perhaps not really got the best of defensive movement, but has got very good timing and very good counters. And against Russell, he really showed them good timing and them good counters. He found what was working for him, and even just the singular shots where he was kind of drawing Russell in and then catching him with the single shots, and he just consistently ended up doing that. And so it was working, good timing, good counters, drawing you in, finding out kind of what works. Negatives about him, he can stand straight on at times, especially when he's unloading, and was doing that a bit against Lopez, and maybe perhaps trying to force the finish a bit at times, but it was working for him, so I can't really discredit it too much. Sometimes he doesn't use the jab to set up shots as well as what he could do. He has got a good jab, but he maybe forgets it a little bit or doesn't really use it to set up, and he doesn't really use it as a power shot, so he's kind of just throwing it out for no particular reason sometimes. His chin can be in the air, head on the line a bit quite regularly at times. Like I say, his defensive movement, he hasn't really got too much of that, so it's nothing really to shout about, anything like that. He can admire his work a bit at times when he lands you with a shot, and then he'll witness it, he'll watch it, and then perhaps get caught with a counter just from, like I mentioned, admiring his work. He's got quite an open defensive guard at times. You know, he tucks it up sometimes when he is under pressure, but a lot of the time it is quite an open guard. He can kind of lean in, lunge in with his shots, and you can see it in his style where he is just a little bit like leaning forwards when he's doing it, and that can affect, you know, balance at points. He can be outpaced, like I feel like he did against Inoue a bit. He can be frustrated, and I think that was another thing in which against Inoue he was frustrated and seemed to struggle to land anything really clean and just wanted to be drawn into a fight, and when he couldn't impose his will he got frustrated. He's quite open to straight shots. That's where he was probably hurt the most against Inoue, just with them straight shots just continuously pumping into through the quite open, I suppose, to an extent, guard. And of course, like I say, he's been hurt and he was hurt to the body, so perhaps Nishida could capitalise on any kind of body work. Speak about Nishida as a fighter though, he's sharp, fast hands, clean boxing. You know, it's nice to watch, especially early on in fights for him. He's a nice, clean, sharp boxer, and he's got perhaps a more amateur style to an extent, but you know, it is clean, it's nice, good jab, moves well. He's not really planting his feet too much, but he is, you know, circling around the ring well and picking off his shots nicely. He's accurate in his work. He's controlled. He looks quite composed a lot of the time. He works his range well. He does have a big reach and a long reach, and he uses that well. And he seems to manage to keep you at that reach well. He's got solid timing, changes levels, nice jab where he changes his levels with it, can fight on the front of the back foot, and has got a good sense of balance. So in general, he's there as a young type fighter type style, and it's good, it's sharp, it's clean, it's nice to see. He could definitely outbox a lot of fighters, but perhaps can he outbox somebody like Rodriguez, who is going to want to be in your face? Negatives about him, of course, this is a very big step up in opponents for him. He doesn't, in my opinion, commit to his power shots as much as what I'd like. Of course, he hasn't really got any kind of stoppages. I believe it was his debut where he got his only stoppage. He can be a little bit one-dimensional at times, only really using the jab or just that particular hand just to be able to throw continuous shots like that, and not really using his other hand. His head is also on the line quite a lot, and that was catching him later on into the fight against Jimenez. He's not really faced much physicality or much physical pressure, but later on into the fight against Jimenez, he seemed like he was struggling. I don't know if that was getting tired or anything, but he just seemed like he was on his bike quite a lot and didn't really want to engage at all. He doesn't, I do, in my opinion, anywhere near his good work in close. He doesn't really plant his feet to land any power shots, and he does slow down later on into fights. Rodriguez is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Rodriguez will win via TKO in round 6. I think he is going to be able to stop him, and I think he is going to be able to hurt him. I think the physical pressure is going to be too much. I think he's going to be controlling the centre in his face. I think Nishida could possibly pick off a couple rounds just from, you know, jabbing away, but I think the actual pressure of Rodriguez will be too much, and it'll be intriguing to see if he can keep up pressure throughout the whole fight, Rodriguez, in which he can normally do. But, you know, he can box a style where he waits for you to come in and counters you, but I don't really think he should do that. I think he should be in his face and should try and put it on Nishida, and that's how I think he'll be able to win. Then who he could go on to fight? I mean, he's fought quite a lot of the guys in the division already, so, you know, a Maloney rematch. Of course, Maloney's fighting Takai, so that if he wins a Maloney rematch for the WBO and IBF, of course, title would be good. Satsumi is the only kind of highly level ranked IBF contender around at the moment. He's 10-0-2 in Japan. Could be another Japanese fight, not really one that anybody's really calling for too much. Or Inoue's brother, Takuma Inoue, I believe that's his name. Of course, WBA champion. He's fighting Nishida on the same card as Inoue versus Neri, which is just on Tuesday, I believe. And so that could be a fight as well. That would be a fight which I'd be interested in as well. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, indeed like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.